Hello. First of all, have a good week. This shiur is dedicated, as always, to Rachalea Bas Rebbetzin Tzvi, to be an Eloi for HaNeshama. What we're going to be talking about today is how to instill the value of the mitzvah of Kibud Av V'aim, honoring parents in children. So I want you to take notice of one thing, because this is critical. We're talking about instilling a mitzvah. We're not talking about getting them to do what you want. Those are two completely different ways of approach. When you use the word mitzvah, the implication is, which means commandment, that there's someone who's giving the command, Hashem. So the main thing is that the child understand that this mitzvah has to do with the child's own moral behavior to which they're accountable to Hashem. It's not just power playing between child and parent. So the more Yirat Shemayim the child has, and the more Ahavat Hashem the child has, the more readily, especially when you get to the critical teenage years and preteen years, the more Kibud Av V'aim will be easy to maintain. The more it's something between the parent and child, when they get to those years, the harder it'll be for the child to see that their will and the parent's will are necessarily not of equal value. So in order to impress this mitzvah upon children, we have to know more about the mitzvah and its meaning. So the main question that people have, certainly the children have, is if the parent isn't all that exciting, they're not that smart, because remember when your kid is 15, nobody is that smart, or they're not that good, why do I have to listen to them? My opinions are just as valuable as theirs. Or, I would understand if my parents were like great people, why I should listen to them, but why should I listen to ordinary people? So the Torah's view is as follows. It's Hashem's providence that makes somebody the child of their parents. So what that means is from Hashem's perspective, not from your perspective, but from Hashem's perspective, there's something that you gain either positively or negatively through your interaction with your parent that you can't gain with anybody else. So it's a way of showing your belief in Hashem's hashgacha. Additionally, it has to do with your seeing your own life as valuable. Your parents are partners in bringing you here. So the more you see your life as valuable, the more gratitude you should logically feel towards them. Okay, so that's the underpinning, that it has to do with hashgacha, it has to do with hakaras hatov. It doesn't have to do with I'm big, you're small, you better listen to me. In addition to that, there's something else that's more subtle that has to be brought into play. The reason why this is such a problem, although Kibud Av V'aim was always a hard mitzvah, Chazal say it's the hardest of mitzvot. The reason why today it's such a problem is that the external society has disregarded this mitzvah. It's not part of the moral fabric of the United States. It is part of the moral fabric of some European countries. Not Scandinavia, but certainly there are expectations people have in England and France and Italy that they don't have in America. In England less. In Italy and Spain, arguably in France more. But in America the expectations are non-existent. So when you look at the low end of the scale, it's become a crime in Florida to abandon a parent in the emergency room, which means that there were enough incidences of children, presumably middle-aged children, taking their parents who were stroke victims or whatever, or victims of dementia, and removing all identification from them, every label in every garment, etc., wheeling them into the emergency room and leaving them there. So they wouldn't make it a law if this happened one time. For it to pass legislature, this would have had to happen a number of times, a significant number of times. That's on the low end of the scale. On the high end of the scale, a good child in American culture, a good adult child, is someone who stays in contact with their parents. There's no expectation that the child should actually take care of their parents or support the parents financially. It's very nice if they do, but it's not expected. So we live in we breathe the air of a society in which the mitzvah is just like it's not in the frame. So with all that in mind, let's divide childhood into different eras, and we'll talk about this mitzvah era by era. So very young children. So very young children could understand they have to listen to their parents because there's a good reason. People will say that people are insecure because of their upbringings, whatever. If you were 3, of course you'd be insecure. There's nothing you could do for yourself that turns out right. You can't cook yourself a meal. You can't buy anything. You can't even reach the electrical switch. So a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, let's look at that block. They know very well that they're completely dependent on their parents for everything. So they know that their parents know